Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BoyleSports, of course, on all the At The Races digital platforms. We've been with you all jump season long. This has been your go-to digital jump show. Hopefully we pointed in the direction of a few winners and covered the season in a fair amount of detail, and that's what we're going to be doing on this show, because we're going to have a look back at Aintree and the Grand National Festival, dissect all the big performances, and we get to look ahead to AYR as well. So it's a bit of a Brucey bonus show for you here today, but we have got plenty to get stuck into, so it's going to be quite like one of the shows mid-season, because there are a lot of talking points for us, and of course I get to do this every week with Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. Quick check-in with the boys. Tony, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Sun is shining here for a change, and hopefully it'll stay that way for the week, because we could very much do it to get some flat racing on in this country at the moment.
Yeah, the traditional sort of slow start to the flat season has been made even worse this year by the terrible weather conditions. But fingers crossed that we have a few drier days coming up now. Barry, you, like me, are off the back of 3 days in Liverpool for the Grand National Festival. How did you enjoy the annual trip over to Aintree?
Oh, brilliant racing, Vanessa. And a good mix of winners. I don't think GB could complain with their tally. There was 21 races and you won 11 of them. So, no, Britain was well represented and had their good share of success, albeit Willie managed to rob the Grand National.
Absolutely he did, and like you say, I mean, it's amazing how much we discuss the Irish bias at Cheltenham, and we preview Cheltenham to such great extent, and then we just roll into Aintree and then the whole thing is so much more relaxed. And yet plenty of the festival form was on show, and plenty of it stood up actually as well, and that's what we're going to be talking about on this show. But first and foremost, we must look back at what happened in the Grand National itself. Now I should just point out, coming up a little bit later, we will have some BoyleSports price boost for you for AYR, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we're going to kick off with, as I say, looking back at the Grand National, and of course victory for I Am Maximus in the JP McManus colours for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend's first Grand National, and led home some real national hunt stalwarts in the likes of Delta Work, Galvin, Manella Indo, etc. So a brilliant race, plenty to look back on and dissect. Tony Keenan, let's kick off with you. The changes that's been made to the National were really sort of brought to the fore when you saw so many horses still in with a chance, with one fence to jump it. It was the Grand National, but it does look very different now, but I'm thinking that's very much for the positive.
It was a one race sample of the new version of the Grand National. I wouldn't necessarily assume that every running of it from here forward will be like this. I'm sure people are absolutely thrilled with the clean, safe running of it, but you're still talking about 34 horses jumping over unusual fences, if not as big as they were, over quite a long trip. So certainly a positive start, but I just would like to see a few more runnings of it to see how things are going to unfold. I think with regard to many horses being in with a chance, 2 out, I think the pace more so than the changes to the race were probably the big issue there. I had a look back just at 2 out in the National, the Topham and the Hunter's Chase, and again I just very rough visuals I'm having a stab at. I think in the National I had about 15 or 16 in with a chance jumping 2 out, Topham 10 or 12, and the Hunter's Chase maybe about 5, maybe 6. And I saw someone make this point on Twitter, and I went to have a look at it, and I thought it was a very good point. I think the huge percentage of Irish-based jockeys who are riding in the Grand National is probably quite impactful for that. I just don't have the exact figures here, but I think there was about 21 of the 32 jockeys were Irish-based in the Grand National, whereas in both the Topham and the Hunter's Chase it was only 5 or 6. Culturally, the pace would tend to be steadier in Ireland, and I think that played a big role. Now, you can argue, of course, that just will be how it's going to unfold, because Irish horses are probably going to continue to make up a huge percentage of the Grand National field in the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I do think the pace was kind of a big part of it. I also think, like, in the last few Nationals, an inside pitch, or at least been in the inside half of the course, just seems to be crucial to winning. You can't win if you're wide. Paul Townend obviously exemplified that on the winner because he just gone around he could not get any tighter to the rail the whole way round. But the three that have chased him home have also been in the inner half of the field. I'd say Kitty Slater's done okay in fifth. He's quite a wide trip. Galileo de la Toe, another one kind of finished 8th at a wide trip. Meeting of the Waters even also. So yeah, those are my two takeaways from it. Like the pace and race position, I just think seem to be becoming very important factors, I think, in deciding who's going to win. And as ever, Mullins and Townend, who are just experts in this when you're watching Irish racing day in day out, have of course spotted that you can't go off the rail, or at least you cannot be too far off it.
And that's fascinating what you say there about the Irish pace jockeys. That's so interesting. I'd never even thought of that. But of course, it's been discussed, hasn't it, in the last sort of year or so over here, the difference in the tempo of races and the way in which Irish jockeys ride their races. Isn't it the cardinal sin to hit the front too soon, Barry, over in Ireland? Isn't that like the one big sin in your country?
Yeah, there's plenty of lads lost their rides and horses and even jobs for getting to the front too soon. No, it's a bigger crime to get there too soon than get there too late over here. So no, I'd agree with what Tony says. And even Michael O'Sullivan was making the run on Glengooley, and he was keen going. His jumping was adequate, but it was very much controlled, and he wasn't going forward. He was probably there, I'd say, partly against his wishes. So no, it wasn't a strong gallop, and it probably is a good reflection on why you had so many horses turning in with chances. But the winner was very good. His jumping was adequate maybe at times, and as Tony mentioned, Paul went the shortest way around. But the thing for me that Paul did was he kept his horse out of the race. He didn't get competitive. I felt James de Burley in the Topham the previous day, he was keen, he jumped too well, he got him there involved at the second last, and he got wore out of it late on. And sometimes you learn more in defeat, they say, and I think that was true. And Paul was adamant to keep I Am Maximus with cover, take his time. He waited till he swung off the elbow, then he went and he pulls out 7.5 lengths. I've never seen a horse quicken away from the elbow, having looked, as if he had work to do. So it was a really good performance, but it was a brilliant tactical ride to be able to conserve as much as he did and ride him for speed in the Grand National. It was really classy, really good performance by the horse. He's probably not the most straightforward, but he was on song on Saturday, and it was a really good performance. So great credit to Willie Mullins, great credit to Paul Townend and JP McManus, who purchased him last year before the Irish Grand National. So he's more than repaid what any of his expenses.
Absolutely, and just I'm with you, and the way in which he flashed past Manella Indo, like you said, looking like he had a bit of work to do, and then he sort of from 2 strides behind Manella Indo to 2 strides in front of him happened in a blink of an eye. It was incredible, really. Rare to see a national finish like that, but of course you do have to take into consideration everything you boys have said in regards to pace. Just, Barry, just a quick word from you on the connections, because I think one of the things I really noticed after the race was, for me personally, immediately after the race, you want one of those national stories to win it, and beforehand that's what you get swept up in. And of course the big story was probably Kitty's Light, really ran so well, but JP winning it, and JP's had this brilliant season. But when I watched it back on the telly, the real pure joy JP and his family seemed to get out of this victory really made me realise that it doesn't matter how many sort of top level successes you have, there's nothing quite like the national, it would seem, to these guys.
Oh, definitely. He waited a long time to win it with Don't Push It in 2010, and then obviously Middle Times a couple of years ago, Rachel. So no, he knows how hard it is to win a Grand National. He went close with Clan Royal once or twice. He was unlucky at Beechers with AP, and then he veered off course with Liam Cooper another year as well. So he has had plenty of misfortune in the Grand National and close ones. So he knows what it means, and he cherishes it.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm sure the same could be said about Willie. He's thrown plenty of darts at the board, and a couple of them have stuck now. Incredible, loved it. And Tony, that leads us on to, of course, the UK Trainers Championship, because a fair bit of money in the pot now means that Willie Mullins is 200,000 ahead of Dan Skelton and Paul Nicholls, of course. First question, will he do it? And second question, what sort of a feat will it be if he does do it? How big a feat will it be?
I get what you're kind of saying there earlier on about the Grand National. Look, no one loves to see Willie Mullins win it. Like, it's a bit like Dublin winning All Ireland's and Manchester United winning when they're winning everything, or Pete Sampras when he was winning all the tennis. But I think, and I'd be a great man for the underdog. You know that, I can be on about it every week. But I think after the 3 days at Liverpool, you couldn't but admire what he's done. Like, I Am Maximus, just starting with him, the year he's after putting in an Irish Grand National, a Drinmore, Bobby Joe, and then the Grand National itself, while also running in another load of Grade 1s along with that, like the both Leopardstown races, the Brown Advisory, great advert now for horses running all the time. And Mullins has gone over here to Aintree, and I think it's fair to say he hasn't brought his A-listers with him. I had a look through the official ratings there in Ireland just before I come on. Out of his top 10 hurdlers, 3 of them ran, and out of his top 10 chasers, 3 of them ran, and he still won the Grand National and 4 or 5 Grade 1s. So he hasn't sent a Fact to Fail or a Ballybourne or a Gallop in the Champ or a Statement or any of these, and still look what he's done, like winning with Hilete Tomp, who, coming off a really terrible jumping performance in the Arkle, and Dancer City looked like he wouldn't have a hope of staying 3 miles earlier on in the season. It's tremendous stuff. So and I think also with regard to the Trainers' Championship, he's put himself in this position very much on his own terms. Again, statistically wise here, he's only had 124 runners in Britain, this year, the season. 19 winners out of them, 12 of them Grade 1s, and then the Grand National. Like 11 runners before Christmas, only 21 before Cheltenham. Like, it's not, he's far from emptied, the chamber running horses. Now, I know in this week you look at AYR and you see the entries that he has, he's far more horses in those races than would obviously typically be the case, but to win it, kind of not really trying very hard until Cheltenham is he hasn't won it yet, but he's certainly in there with a life, and it will be interesting to see what he kind of pitches up, especially at Sandown, where there are some graded races that would clash a little bit maybe with Punchestown, but by the looks of things and what he's done so far this season, I don't think his Punchestown team is really going to suffer in any meaningful sense. The entries for Punchestown are out today. He has loads of horses that didn't go to Aintree coming straight from Cheltenham on to Punchestown, so like getting the double up, there's a very strong chance that he will do it, and it will be a magnificent achievement, because he's going to do it with maybe having 175 runners, maybe 200 runners in Britain over the whole season. I've no idea what Paul Nicholls and Dan Skelton have done. Of course, they've got fasty numbers more, but it would be an excellent achievement.
It will be incredible. It's going to be so interesting to see over the next couple of weeks how this pans out, because it's not over until the fat lady sings and all of that. So fascinating to follow that, but a brilliant national winner, and I loved it. I loved the race. I loved being there. I love Liverpool, as my voice may be telling right now. Let's roll on and talk about a few of the other good performances, guys, from the 3 days. We'll roll back to the Thursday, kit and rattle through these Grade 1s. Barry, Tony's already mentioned Hilete Tom's winning the Manifesto, obviously beating Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawning. How much has he improved for the step up in trip and a better round of jumping versus the other two, maybe just feeling the effects of Cheltenham Fraction?
Yeah, I'd say I won't say a step up in trip, I'd say it's kind of meeting at a middle distance, because 2-4 around Aintree is a good bit sharper than 2-4 around Cheltenham. He had the pace that he showed in the Arkle and all through the season when he clashes with Found a 50. So no, I thought he was entitled to do what he did, and it was just the pace element. They went a good gallop up front. Paul Townend dropped in, rode a patient race, crept into it, used the speed, and it won the day. You could say Grey Dawning probably underperformed to a degree, but I don't think if he was on his A game, he was going to match the pace the winner had. Genie's Destiny ran a good solid race, kept going well, jumped really well, just wasn't good enough. So no, good performance by the winner, but I always feel a 2.5 mile Aintree suits the 2 miler more than the stair. So it was no big shock really.
Okay, no big shock. Was it a big shock to you, Tony?
It was a little bit of shock. I suppose his jumping came together so much from the Arkle. I think he would have been alongside Found a 50 if he'd have jumped at all. But his jumping really was awful in the Arkle. And the Arkle form was the standout piece of form that really worked out. At Aintree, Found a 50, and Master Chewy, of course, was very much in the mix when he departed in the Arkle. And maybe Gaelic Warrior is what he looked like in the Arkle. Certainly the outcomes at Liverpool would say that.
Right, let's move on then to the juvenile hurdle. Barry, I'm sure you'd been delighted to see Sir Gino win for, of course, your old boss in Nicky Henderson. And huge relief for the Henderson camp. I don't know if it was a flashier performance as so many wanted to see from this horse, but he won. And he won nicely enough in the end from Cargeese, who did not make Paul Townend's life easy in any way, shape or form, did she?
No, definitely no. She pulled very hard throughout. Now she does run keen generally, but I think she pulled a little harder on Thursday than she had done in the Triumph Hurdle. But you could see how empty she was on the run to the last. She was beaten. But give credit to the winner. He missed the third last. He was untidy at the second last. He jumped the last well and he pulled it enough to win. But definitely Cargeese would have dented its own chances with how keen it was. But Sir Gino did it well, but he didn't just blow the roof off it. But it was still good performance and great to see Nicky off the board. And I think everyone was relieved for him because, you know, he is one of the mainstays in England to produce winners. So yeah, it was good for him, good for the yard, having had such a, you know, abysmal Cheltenham really.
Yeah, you know, we want and we need him to be firing on all cylinders. And so for him to bring some of his top notches to Aintree and for a couple of them to win, it just felt like that was really important, not only for him, but for Aintree as a whole. Tony, roll on to the bowl. Brilliant race. Gerri Colombe getting the best of Ahoy Senor. Excellent finish, I thought, and loved seeing the obviously Gold Cup form sort of on show here. And Gerri Colombe once again relishing Aintree, pulling it out the bag. He's some horse when they can get him really right, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think to be fair to him, he's been right basically every day in his career, bar maybe Christmas at Leopardstown, just gone like that. Yeah, like the only horse.
I don't know. I feel like I'm being harsh on him, right? But it felt like in the build up to Leopardstown, Gerri Colombe was really being pitched in as the horse that could put it up to Galopin Des Champs, and the way in which Galopin Des Champs just put him to bed that day made me think, oh, he's let us down here. And now I'm slightly sort of it's in the memory, that performance, but I'm being harsh on him. So correct me on that, Tony.
I just say he didn't run his race fully in Leopardstown for whatever reason. I don't know. Galopin Des Champs can be workmanlike, but does have it in him to be really flashy as well, like his Gold Cup win of last season and that Leopardstown win, and even his Leopardstown Beginner's Chase and runs like that. But Gerri Colombe is never a horse to win very far. I thought the race on Thursday was kind of all against him. It was quite a steadily run race. I didn't think Jack Kennedy had him in a great position really at any point. Kind of in along the rate, he kind of really needed to be out where Gentleman's Game was. But the horse is tough enough and likeable enough to get him out of trouble. And then I think he's actually finished up winning with little bit in hand. Really excellent performance. Is he as good as a big Galopin Des Champs? No, he's probably better than he showed at Christmas. At this point, like the Galopin Des Champs and the Real Whacker in the race, he probably should have won, or the only horse that beaten him at this stage. High Senor does what he does, came back to form at the Aintree. Very good run out of him. Corbett's Cross, again, I thought it was an excellent performance for a horse whose jumping was fairly shoddy, and maybe that will continue to hold him back, but the kind of market strength behind him, what did he go off 100 to 30 like on the form book as such, very hard to have any interest in him at that price. But I tell you, he ran very close to market expectations there as well. What else have he got there? I think Braveman's Game just hasn't been the same horse this season as he was last. I believe they're talking about a breeding operation there. But yeah, Gerri Colombe, I have no idea whether he'd go on to Punchestown. I see he is entered in the Punchestown Gold Cup, and he hasn't. He missing Leopardstown in February may suggest that he might be worth another go. And he did thrive on racing last season. I think there is an even bigger performance in him in a more truly run race, and maybe he could catch Galopin Des Champs over the top there. But I don't know. I think this is probably the high point of his season.
Yeah, so Gerri Colombe and Ahoy Senor running their race at Cheltenham and putting it up to each other, that was kind of like semi-expected, and that's what we know from them. Corbett's Cross for me was the big surprise in there. Just didn't think that performance was there, but as you say, Tony, the market had it much more correct than I did anyway. Barry, let's move on to Impaire Passe in the Aintree Hurdle. This is probably I think this is fair to say, the most dramatic Grade 1 of the week because of the interference with Bob Ollinger and Langer Dang. What was your view on this race, and specifically the steward's inquiry? Should Impaire Passe have kept the race? Was he the best horse in the race?
Yeah, I think it was right to keep the race. But he caught Paul by surprise early on. And like he did in the Hatton's Grace, he was keener than he expected. And I'd say after making the running in Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, it just set him on edge. But he didn't settle the way he would have liked. He ran a bit keen, just travelled a bit too well at times, got competitive earlier than ideal. And he was probably a little bit of a sitting duck or a shooting duck at the back of the last. Paul switched across in front of Langer Dan. He was just clear, only just clear. So I think the stewards made the right call. Both horses ran around at the last. The Impaire Passe went right and Langer Dan went left. They were going all over the place. But he didn't actually interfere with Harry Skelton, who never had to stop riding. He chased on. He ran across in front of Bob Ollinger, but didn't necessarily interfere with him either. It was a flash finish, and 2 strides after the line, Impaire Passe was beaten. So he was lucky, but I don't think the interference was enough to cause a need to reverse the placing. So I think the stewards were right, but I don't think the horse helped his own chances through the early part of the race by just maybe travelling too well in Paul's hands.
Okay. Let's move on to Friday, guys. And Tony, we will start with you. I know the way you're thinking when the Milebane novices chased 3 miles 1 furlong. Obviously from Kim Muir's success to Grade 1 glory here. And for Gavin Cromwell as well, who of course had such an excellent year over here with his runners in the UK. And then that was shown again here at Aintree with this horse.
Yeah, excellent performance. I don't know how he's won this with the kind of position he's come from, and then how quickly he settled it and won it easily. Like he genuinely did have 15, 18, 20 pounds in hand in the Kim Muir. Subsequent events have shown this race looks quite a solid piece of form. You had the Ultima winner in there in the mix, Iroko. I'd say ran his race. I'd say there might be a little bit more to come from him. Missing the middle part of the season wasn't ideal, and he was finishing off well here. But I know the way you're thinking. Yeah, but you'd have to be going the Grade 1 route next season. But he is a little bit like Corbett's Cross. His jumping will need to sharpen up, and his kind of race sharpness now. But then you could argue the same, but I Am Maximus, maybe just the latent ability that is there is so much that he's going to be able to overcome it. But yeah, it will be interesting to see these novices because they really do look novice-y type. Sometimes you see novice and they're really professional and sharp and they're jumping and doing things right. I don't think that applies to either Corbett's Cross. I know the way you're thinking, how they fare out when they win against the more experienced horses next season, who do set a fairly high bar at the minute. I think that's fair to say.
I mean, Barry, JP's kind of Gold Cup, staying chaser team for next year is quite extraordinary. Factor File, I know the way you're thinking, Corbett's Cross, I Am Maximus, I mean, Iroko, like all in that sort of staying chase division next year. Quite an extraordinary lineup. Must be his strongest in that area for a long time.
I'd say the strongest any owner's had, yeah. So if they all get there,
Yeah.
but you know, these problems have a habit of sorting themselves out. But I know the way you're thinking. It was a brilliant performance. He was on the back foot from halfway down the back, and Tony mentioned he didn't jump as well, and I'd agree with him, he didn't. But I'd say he found it easier around Cheltenham, and there is a big difference between Cheltenham and Aintree because you're going that bit harder around Aintree. It's a flat track. Fences stand up in front of you really, so they do catch a lot of horses. So I don't think it helped him. As well as Corbett's Cross maybe too. So you see some horses just don't jump as sharp, but this fella missed, another way of thinking, missed the third last. He was last of the field jumping the second last. It took a big performance from there to win, and to win going away at the line. So now he's a very smart horse, but he'd be much better suited by a stiffer track like Cheltenham, just going a shade further. So his Gold Cup trip would be ideal for this fella.
Okay, keener on him than I thought then. Barry, I'll stick with you because all season long I've been very engaged with the novice chase division over any trip, but I've struggled a little bit to be as engaged with the novice hurdle division, and that includes over the 2 mile trip. And of course, in the top novices hurdle, we saw Mystical Power and Firefox confirm the supreme form. Mystical Power going, of course, 1 place better and winning this Grade 1. Are they an average bunch? Are they a good bunch? What level do you think we will look back and think, and in time, and rank this bunch of novice hurdlers over the 2 miles?
Well, Slade Steel beat them well at the festival, having been slow at the last. So they're probably not a vintage bunch, but I think there's still potential. Mystic Power has improved for each run, right back to its bumper at the start of the season. He's built on everything he's done. He was a stronger finisher this weekend than he was, I felt, at Cheltenham. Firefox stayed on strongly, but the two of them pulled well clear of the third. So I'd say it'll work out, and their two horses go in the right direction. But definitely Mystical Power is a horse I think I feel he improves at every run. I think it was slow enough to Penny to drop with him.
Okay, still more to come then from Mystical Power. Be fascinating, to see how they campaign him as well, because of course few people think that he'd be very interesting on the flat. So we will see. We will see. Let's move on, Tony, because one of the best races of the week, I thought, was in the Melling Chase, 2.5 miles. John Bon getting the better of Conflated in the finish and really toughing it out. And again, maybe it's because I'm a bit biased with the Nicky Henderson factor, but to see this horse back at Grade 1 Glory, I was really impressed with him. Were you?
Yeah, you'd have to be. Like, Jack Kennedy just decided from the outset here that he was going to make it a real test on Conflated. They stuck the cheek pieces on, and there was no way, like, at any point he was going to let Pick Dory head him. He was going to use his horse's stamina. I thought Conflated ran a terrific race. His best effort of the season, I'd say, would be a fair bit. And I tell you, after 2 out, I thought Conflated was going to pull out a little bit more, but John Bon found plenty and has done it really well. Now, I suppose you can pick at the form. It's only Protectorate, it's only Conflated, but this is the horse's first go at the trip, and it's opened up, I'd say, the world of possibility for him. Jumping was a lot better than it had been at Cheltenham, and it will just be interesting to see. Like maybe 2.5, maybe even a little bit further has been the trip that he's been looking for all along. And he will get going up in that distance. He'll get to avoid the likes of Constitution Hill and El Fabiolo, who he's probably sick looking at. But when those horses don't turn up, this horse wins. And again, like I Am Maximus, same colours. They've never been afraid of running him. He runs a hell of a lot and wins a hell of a lot. So I presume he'll go on to Sandown at the end of the season. Maybe even Punchestown might be on the cards, possibly back to 2 miles. But yeah, a very good return to form for him.
Yeah, it really was. And like you said, it sort of, Barry kind of pulled out more than I thought he was capable of specifically. Well, obviously it was an unknown at this trip, but in the finish, he was right back to like terrier-like in that he wanted it, didn't he? He's there head and heart.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But Nicky had mentioned it early in the season, how he saw him probably stepping up to 2.5, and then he went and won the Tingle Creek, so that kind of cancelled that plan. But no, it was a good performance. Nico gave him a good ride. He bounced him out to be smart. Then there was enough pace. There was 6 in line down over the first, and he just tucked him in and rode a nice race. No, he does jump well, albeit he didn't jump well in the Clarence House, but I don't think this was his best round of jumping. And I mentioned earlier about Aintree and Cheltenham it can be easier to get a rhythm going around Cheltenham on some horses, and I'd feel this fella is better around Sandown or around Cheltenham than he was around Aintree. They're a big fence, they stand up, as I say, in front of you. Even the last, he got in close, he was tight. I've seen him jump better. And I would draw the line through that mistake in the Clarence House, but he's definitely lots of options going up and trip, and there's no reason to suggest he wouldn't get further. But no, it was a really good performance. It was a really good competitive race as well.
Yeah, they have options with him now, and as Tony said, we'll see plenty of him, which is what we love. Let's rattle through Saturday, guys. Kicking off with the Mersey Novices Hurdle, won by Brighter Days Ahead, of course, who managed to show her real class, and she was such a, dare I say, hype horse. Not I hate that saying really, but she was a bit of a hype horse going into the festival, just because of how fond Gordon is of this mare, and she managed to put up at Aintree this pretty scintillating performance. Tony, when you look back at the form, she's beaten a couple of bigger priced horses, maybe a couple of Willie Mullins B-listers disappointing in behind, and Jimmy Desoy and Il Atlantique. Do you think we'll look back on this form and think it's solid, or that she's solid, or do you think you can tear it apart pretty easily?
I don't think the form's at all solid, but the visuals were really, really good. The form can be picked. Jimmy Desai was very hot in the parade ring, and kind of hot on the way to the start. He raced a bit keen. Has he run his race? I don't know. Il Atlantique was too keen. I think he's a hype horse now. If ever there's a hype horse, that is Il Atlantique. I think it would be fair to say that he's a hype horse. So beating those doesn't maybe mean an awful lot, and people point maybe to, again, Ballybourne's form hasn't worked out, but he's so far ahead of those two, I don't think you can really be criticising him on that front. I think if you're back to Cheltenham, you're probably just feeling pretty aggrieved. I think the Cheltenham race was slowly run, and that's a fair excuse, and Doddiethegreat has come out and also won since that, but this was also kind of slowly run, so just inclined to put it down to a little bit of an off day. Maybe she's not in love with the track at Cheltenham, maybe she's more comfortable over 2.5, but I think it's just one of those things. She just didn't run to form for whatever reason, and this was much more in keeping with what they were saying about her. Like, for all the form is a little bit questionable, and again, she's a bit like John Bond. Like, they really have all sorts of options are available. I know they've thought about it as a chaser, but there are the world of options for hurdling mares and Grade 1 hurdling mares and things like that. So yeah, like, she has every option going forward. Interesting, I see again she does have the open Grade 1 mares hurdle entry against Lossie Mount of Punches, and they'll probably not run her again. She'll be more going to come back at Navan and Downroyal kind of November time, but we'll see, will that be over hurdles or fences?
That is the question I'm putting to you, Barry, because given her connections, obviously the O'Leary colours and Gordon Elliott, and then add in her pedigree page, they're going to go chasing with her, aren't they?
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. They didn't go chase for Apple's Jade, and she did well as a staying mare. I always felt this mare was crying out for further. She didn't impress me when she won in Downroyal back in November. She beat Bantown. I thought she was workmanlike for all the talk. And then she was impressive over 2.5 on heavy ground in Navan. Now, she didn't have to beat an awful lot, but to me, she just looked at home over that trip. Golden Ace did it for pace at Cheltenham, but at 2.5 miles, the hurdle track in Aintree round the outside, it's a bigger circuit than the chase track. It's a bigger test of stamina. That was a brilliant performance, and I'd love to see her staying at this trip. And if she wants to look at further, she'd be better than looking up than looking down for me anyway.
Okay, this trip and further then. Tony, Liverpool hurdle time saw strong leader win this for the Ollie Murphy team. Seemed to mean an awful lot to Ollie afterwards, beating Buddy One and Hidden Valley Lake. Few disappointments really in behind. Mainly, I suppose, Flooring Porter went off favourite for the race and just didn't really fire. Maybe feeling the effects of Cheltenham, do we think?
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, Ollie Murphy know how to enjoy a winner. I was standing beside him at, I shouldn't say I was standing, he was running when Brewing Up a Storm won at Fairyhouse at Easter. He was getting a great kick out of beating Zarek the Brave. So yeah, fair play to him, and seems to be having a good run at the moment. Thought the jockey was excellent in this horse. Sean Bowen, they seem to go a good clip. I think Florence Porter possibly was feeling the effects of the Stayers hurdle, but also they'd gone a good pace, and strong leader kind of down the back, moved up into it, but leaving the back straight, Sean Bowen just says, no, I'll just press pause now and I'll let these others press on. And Buddy One kind of did that, and Hidden Valley Lake did that, and Florence Porter to a degree, and he just says, no, I'll wait, and it just worked out perfectly for him. He is a horse that is turned into a little bit of a course specialist. I don't think they even entered him in the Stayers hurdle at Cheltenham. Aintree seems to be his track, but I've credited the trainer for having a bit of sense there with that, because he avoided Tiupu, got the horses who were Tiupu's inferior at Cheltenham, who'd had another run, and it worked out perfectly, and he's got a Grade 1 out of it. So yeah, look, an interesting horse, because he has only had the 2 runs at this trip, and he was probably a little bit unlucky in the Cleve hurdle, came from further back than anything else, so he does have upside. Maybe to go to Cheltenham again next season, or maybe to just aim at this race again, because it does seem to suit him particularly well.
Okay, yeah, it could just be one of those one target for the season type situations back there. Also, Tony, I will stick with you for the McGill Novices Chase. Founder 50 winning that for Gordon and Jack Kennedy. Went off the 11-8 favourite in the end. And this horse, like, he's a solid... he's literally danced every dance, hasn't he? We've seen loads of him. He can occasionally just be a little bit quirky, but other than that... I'm starting to really like Founder 50 is the point I'm trying to make here.
Yes, 6 runs, I think, this season, last 5 of them in Grade 1s. The quirks were evident there at Christmas, but I think since then he's looked very straightforward, maybe some slight adjustments right at his fences. This race a bit of drama at the start. Matata came across a few of them. I think Hercule Desai ran a strange race. He got hampered, and then next thing he's finished up in front, then he dropped back, then he kind of came back again. But it was, I suppose, between the more forward ridden ones. Quilixius ran much better than he had at Cheltenham. Sort of something happened to him at the start there and he got behind, but Rachel Blackmore was keen, I think, to have him forward. He jumped well. He probably just maybe overdid it a little bit in front, but found the 50. Yeah, very likeable. Got his, what is it now, his second grade 1 of the season. And he had disappointed this meeting last season, so good to see him kind of get back on track in that regard. You'd feel a little bit sorry for the runner-up, Master Chewy. Like, he just doesn't want to be in front for too long, and I think that was mentioned by Sam Twist and Davis earlier on, that he kind of has one burst of speed and kind of got there and just got in front and found the 50, come back again. So just, yeah, not the easiest ride, I'd say, late in the race when you've got a rival as talented as Found the 50 up against you. But yeah, Found the 50, I'm sure you have to go into the open grade ones. There's a couple of opportunities there earlier on the season. Naas have a second season Chasers race in November, mid-November time, which would suit them, and then maybe they can drive on to Leopardstown at Christmas.
Okay, well look, that has been rattle through wrapping up Aintree, and what a festival it was. Love it. Feel like there's real good vibes around Aintree at the National, and those graded races of course as well. Could sit here and talk for a lot longer, but we've got to keep these shows snappy at this point, so we will roll on for a look ahead to AYR, which, as discussed at the top of the show in regards to the Trainers' Championship, is going to be very important indeed. Nichols, Skelton and Mullins will be taking big teams up to AYR. Plenty of prize money on offer. We are going to take a look at a couple of the big races, the Scottish Champion Hurdle and the Scottish Grand National as well. Barry, I will start with you in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. The current market is Luda Sud up at the top for team Dan Skelton, of course, 7-2. Doddiethegreat in there, 7-1. Empirico Lord is 8-1. Further down, you've got Rubo for Nichols, of course. Ava and Fortune in there at 10-1. These prices, obviously, with BoyleSports as we stand right now, must timestamp these, that we record this on a Monday night, so may well have changed by the time you're watching this, but just bear that in mind. Those are the prices currently, Barry. So Luda Sud, pretty short price for this. Do you think it's as simple as the market is predicting it to be?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that straightforward for Lord of Sud. Iberico Lord, who beat him in the Betfair, is only £1 worse off him. But Lord of Sud went on, he was second in the County Hurdle to Absurd, which was a good run as well. But there's not much change in those with the weights. And Iberico Lord was supplemented for the Champion Hurdle, and he disappointed like a lot of Nicky's horses did at the time. But if he'd potential to build on that Betfair win and could have been a contender in the Champion Hurdle, you'd have to take note here, and 8-1 mightn't be a bad price. Has lots of form on soft ground, and AYR is currently heavy at the minute, so I think conditions should suit him, and definitely that'll be the one for me.
Okay, let's roll on to the Scottish Grand National, Tony. Loads of prize money here, over £100,000 in to the winner alone, 112,000, and Willie Mullins is now obviously has this in his sights. He's sending over, or he looks as though he's going to send out over Macdermott. He is currently at the top of the market at 5-1 with BoyleSports. Angler's Crag is in there on a roll at 8-1 for Brian Ellison. Mr. Incredible is 7-1 for the Mullins team. Obviously saw him in the National. Have no idea if they'll be able to turn him out quickly. Obviously his race ended midway through, so will we get to see him again? Git Baker in there at a double figure price of 10-1 currently with BoyleSports. After that, likes of Sail Away, Stay Away Faye, the top weighted horse. So very competitive, as you would expect, Tony. Where do you find yourself landing in this at this early stage, I should point out?
Macdermott was really impressive with Fairyhouse winning the race after the Irish Grand National. Probably wasn't the most competitive race, but very impressive, and I would have fair bit of time for the horse that he beat in second, Robert Tyner's Jip McManus. I should say he's also well handicapped. The only thing was that Danny Mullins really got to dictate on him that day, and his jumping wasn't great then, and hasn't been great really throughout his novice season. So you would think in this bigger field something would take him on and maybe put his jumping under pressure, and I think I just lean towards something with more handicap experience. I think from a handicapping point of view, Gitmaker is the one that stands out to me. as mentioned before, I know the way you're thinking, had 15-20 pounds in hand in the Kim year, and this horse ran second to him. Now he has been beaten, what was it, 8 lengths, but it was 7 or 8 lengths, but it was another 18 lengths back to the third whacker Clan, who himself has a good Cheltenham form, some solid types in behind that, where it all began, and daily present. But the cherry on top is that Gitmaker's only been put up £1 for this Cheltenham run. Now again, he has to prove he stays a trip. He will like the ground as it is, and I think whatever he is, I think a general 10-1, he's quite a decent bet for this race, just with how the form is after working out and how well he ran on that day.
Well, Tony, courtesy of BoyleSports, Gitmaker is one of our price boosts this week. So you're right, he's currently 10-1, but he has been boosted out to 12-1 with BoyleSports. Now, of course, T's and C's do apply. Please read them on the website. That offer will be for a limited time only, but Tony thinks 10-1 is pretty fair, so you've got to be pretty happy with 12-1 about Gitmaker in the Scottish Grand National. Barry, who would you like to add into the mix, or do you agree with Tony and Gitmaker?
No, I'm with Tony on Gitmaker. He's a horse I know a little bit about. We had him here as a youngster, and we had him as a pointer and sold him on to Jamie Snowden. So he does jump really well. He loves soft ground. As Tony mentioned, that's a great run in Cheltenham, and he's 18 lengths clear of the third. He's only got up £1 for it. He was probably slightly disappointing when beaten by Victoria at Ascot on his previous start, I think it was, where he finished 6th or so, but that was on better ground. All his form is on soft ground, does jump really well, was a good winner in Lingfield. They call it good to soft, but I looked every bit of it and slower that day. So no, I like Gitmaker. His horse is definitely on the up, and no, he'd be the one for me on sentimental reasons as well.
Head down heart for Barry Geraghty. Who'd have thought it, hey? And so the boys in agreement with a 12-1 shot, limited time only, but a 12-1 shot if you use the price boost with BoyleSports. Should also point out that the other price boost is Macdermott, boosted from 5-1 to 6-1, so a point bigger for the anti-post favourite for the Scottish Grand National, if you fancy that. Those are the price boosts available to you courtesy of BoyleSports. Boys, that wraps up the show. It's been an excellent Aintree wash-up show. Look ahead to AYR as well, and we still have a bonus off the fence episodes coming your way, fans out there, because we will be looking ahead to Punchestown as well. Obviously not covering every single race there over the Punchestown Festival, but we'll be looking at some of the highlights ahead of time, as always, with Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. So stay tuned for that bonus episode that'll be with you in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, good luck. Thank you very much for watching. That was Off the Fence.